Hello everyone, and welcome to today's deep dive into one of the most fascinating figures in Japanese history, the Ronin. You may have heard the term in anime, samurai movies, or even in modern pop culture, but what exactly was a Ronin? The word Ronin literally means wave man, someone who is drifting, like a wave without a home. But that's just the surface of a much deeper story. In feudal Japan, a Ronin was a samurai who no longer served a lord or master. To understand Ronin, we first need to understand the social structure of the samurai class. During Japan's feudal period, roughly from the 12th to the 19th century, society was organized around loyalty, duty, and hierarchy. Samurai were warriors who pledged absolute loyalty to a daimyo, a powerful lord. When a samurai's lord died, was overthrown, or banished the samurai, that warrior became masterless. That is when he became a Ronin. Unlike a regular unemployed person, a Ronin was a trained warrior, often well-educated, skilled in swordsmanship, and sometimes desperate. But not all Ronin were tragic figures. Some adapted to their new freedom, using their skills in creative or even dangerous ways. A few even rose to great power, others became bandits, mercenaries, or bodyguards. Historically, the Ronin emerged as early as the Heian period 79–1185, when peasants fled taxation and were called Ronin for abandoning their land. But the term took on its warrior meaning during the Kamakura period 1185–1333, when the samurai class became more prominent. In the Kamakura and Muromachi periods, loyalty between lord and vassal was deeply personal. But even then, if a clan was destroyed in war, its warriors could find themselves masterless and thus, Ronin. Still, the real explosion of Ronin came during the Sengoku Warring States period, a time of non-stop warfare between rival lords across Japan. With clans constantly rising and falling, many samurai lost their lords and became Ronin. This created a paradox. Ronin were often feared for being unpredictable or even rebellious. But they were also highly skilled warriors, perfect recruits for lords looking to grow their armies. And that's where it gets interesting. Not all Ronin were losers. In fact, some of the most legendary figures in Japanese history, like Miyamoto Musashi, were Ronin. Musashi, a master swordsman and strategist, famously fought over 60 duels and was never defeated. He had no permanent master and didn't want one. For him, being Ronin was a way of life. So the image of the Ronin is complex. They could be noble, deadly, desperate, or even revolutionary. But were they stronger than samurai who served a lord? That's the question we'll explore later in this video. Samurai were essentially full-time warriors, but first, let's break down how Ronin were different from samurai in more detail. As Japan moved into more turbulent times, the number of Ronin surged. Many warriors, once loyal samurai, were forced into masterlessness due to political intrigue, war, or the sudden death of their lords. In these chaotic moments, survival depended on adaptability. The life of a Ronin was one of constant uncertainty. Without a stable income or the protection of a lord's retinue, these masterless warriors had to rely solely on their own skills. Some sought temporary employment as bodyguards, while others turned to teaching the art of the sword. Economic hardship often led Ronin to perform odd jobs. They became wandering swordsmen, mercenaries, or even bandits. Yet, despite the challenges, their prowess in battle remained undeniable. They were formidable fighters, with honed reflexes and ingenious combat tactics developed over years of disciplined training. Moreover, many Ronin chose to follow their own code of honor. Free from the strictures of feudal hierarchy, they sometimes adopted principles that emphasized personal integrity and self-reliance. For these men, life as a Ronin was a double-edged sword offering both liberty and isolation. One notable example is the story of a certain Ronin who, after losing his master during a fierce clan battle, roamed the countryside offering his services to any who could afford his price. His unmatched skill in the katana made him both feared and respected among rival lords. His name, though now lost in time, became synonymous with both brilliance and melancholy in martial circles. However, not all Ronin chose the path of valor. Some resorted to a life of petty crime, taking advantage of their ambiguous status. In regions where law and order were weak, these Ronin would band together, forming notorious groups that terrorized small villages and trade routes alike. The cultural perception of Ronin in Japanese society was, therefore, complex. On one side, they were admired as free spirits and legendary warriors. On the other, they were viewed with suspicion and disdain by established samurai who enjoyed the privileges of service and hierarchy. This dichotomy is reflected in traditional tales and modern media alike. Movies and novels often portray Ronin as brooding antiheroes who walk the line between honor and anarchy. Their ability to survive and adapt in a rapidly changing world captured the imagination of generations. So, what about the strength of a Ronin compared to a samurai in formal service? To answer this, we must delve deeper into the strategies, disciplines, and social conditions that defined each group. It is not merely a matter of physical strength but also of circumstance and mindset. Samurai in the service of a lord were given structure, regular training schedules, family support systems, and the backing of established clans. This environment allowed them to focus intensely on perfecting their combat techniques and abiding by the Bushido Code, a set of ethical and moral principles that emphasize duty, honor, and loyalty. In contrast, Ronin had to fend for themselves. They often spent long periods on the road, facing not only physical dangers but also social stigma. The lack of institutional support forced many Ronin to become even more resourceful and innovative in battle, using guerrilla tactics or unconventional strategies to overcome foes who might have outnumbered or out-equipped them. This constant need to adapt gave rise to a unique kind of strength among Ronin. Their solitary lifestyle honed skills like quick decision-making and survival instincts under pressure. While a samurai's training was comprehensive and rigorous, a Ronin's experience was forged by the unpredictable nature of life without a master. Yet, such freedom came at a cost. Without the discipline and motivation provided by a hierarchical structure, some Ronin descended into self-doubt and moral ambiguity. Their great potential was sometimes squandered by a life of drift and despair, resulting in warriors whose talents faded with time. Historians have long debated which group was stronger, the samurai with their unwavering loyalty and structured training, or the Ronin, who embodied the fierce, independent spirit of the warrior. The answer, as is often the case with history, is not black and white. In many instances, the strength of a warrior depended on the circumstances of the battlefield. A disciplined samurai might prevail in an organized military campaign, while a wily Ronin could outmaneuver and outhink his opponents in the chaotic world of a skirmish. Their strengths were complementary, yet distinct. By the end of the tumultuous Sengoku period and into the more orderly Edo period, the societal role of Ronin began to fade. The new era brought stability and rigid social order, diminishing the opportunities for masterless warriors to practice their art independently. Nonetheless, the legacy of the Ronin endures, a testament to the resilient spirit of those who choose freedom over servitude.